Hi everybody, I'm back again. We are on video 2 of this procedure for learning how to deal with case studies. I'm going to get rid of my face in a minute because really, who needs that, right? And let's proceed then. So this is the second video, and sort of the second step as you look at doing a case study analysis is you gotta read it in detail. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is read in detail and take notes. So my this program over here that I have called Highlight actually allows me to highlight. So as I find things that I want to highlight, it's going to show up over here in this margin over here. So let's see. We already looked at the first sentence. This is based on a real life project and takes place in 2010 at the New York City headquarters for the U.S. operations for AC Global. AC Global is a multinational insurance company with its headquarters in France and annual revenue ranking in the top 10 companies globally. The company has significant operations in the US, Europe, Japan, and Australia, and the operations in each country are separate insurance companies that operate with a large degree of autonomy. Recently, AC Global established insurance operations and a servicing center in India. The servicing center in India primarily provides some information technology support for the insurance operations in the UK, Belgium, and France. The ongoing global recession has significantly decreased the profitability of AC Global, increasing the importance of reducing costs. Let's see. AC Global's operations in the US sell life and annuity products and represent approximately 20% of the group's life and annuity revenues. So the US makes up 20% of the revenues of this country. So we can go ahead and make that note. And actually, there we go. So it's highlighted. You see how that shows up over there? We have approximately 3,000 employees, with about 1,000 of them based in the New York headquarters, and the remaining employees are located at the company's service centers in New Jersey, PA, and North Carolina. Okay, so that's our introduction. That kind of tells us about what about the company. And then here we go into the details of the case. For an insurance company, there are 4 key line items on the income statement: premium revenue, investment income, benefits and claims expense, and operating expenses. So this is what the income statement looks like for an insurance company. Operating expenses provide the greatest opportunity for short-term improvements in earnings, since the other line items are less controllable, or the impacts of changes emerge over a long period of time. Investment income is primarily composed of interest and dividends on bonds and common stock investments and is not changed through operating actions. Premium revenue is composed of fees collected for providing insurance coverage and is only modestly impacted by current sales. What they mean by that is that the premium revenue is, it's ongoing. So if you buy an insurance policy, you keep paying on it over time. And benefits and claims are paid to policyholders and their beneficiaries and are also difficult to impact in the short term. Okay, so this is all to say that the only thing we can do to cut costs or to improve profitability would be to look at operating expenses. Okay, so the global economic downturn that began in late 2008 put intense pressure on the financial services industry. During 2009, U.S. sales of annuity products decreased by 30%, while life insurance sales fell by 15%. Like the industry, AG Global has been negatively impacted by the economic downturn. Here comes an important thing. U.S. premium revenue fell 8% cumulatively between 2007 and 2009. In 2010, the company's operations remained stable, but revenue was expected to be similar to 2009. So our operating earnings decreased by over 80% from 2007 to 2008, and ACUS suffered an operating loss in 2008. Although operating earnings recovered somewhat in 2009, the earnings for AC Global, Consolidated, and ACUS are still 36% and 40% respectively below those in 2007. So again, I'm just going through this and highlighting. As a result, the company's stock price is down nearly 50% since the beginning of the crisis in 2008. ACUS measures operating efficiency based on the expense ratio, which is operating expenses divided by premium revenue. In 2004, ACUS went through a restructuring that reduced personal overlap and inefficiencies. Through the restructuring, ACUS reduced the workforce by 4%, reduced operating expenses by 5%, and improved the expense ratio from 12.7% to 10.1%, 14% better than the expense ratio of 11.7% for AC Global. So you'll notice that I'm reading this, but I'm not really highlighting it, because I'm not sure how relevant all this stuff is. This is clearly, these are our targets, these are our performance indicators here. This expense ratio, operating expenses divided by premium revenue. But I'm not seeing what all this has to do with our tactical decision making. This stuff is just telling us sort of what the managers look at, in my opinion. It might be different later. And you'll notice, you guys, I'm doing this cold, right? I'm literally reading this for the first time while I'm making this video because I want you to see my thought process as it unfolds. Okay. So we get through this first sort of discussion about profits, and then we start talking about the meat of what it is that we're trying to look at here. And again, this is a true story, right? Somebody actually did this consulting job and wrote it up for this insurance company, this major insurance company. Okay, so here we go. Here's the project. So Peter George is a vice president responsible for financial planning and analysis at ACUS in New York. Financial planning and analysis is precisely what you are learning to do in this class, what you will continue to learn to do if you take my upper level finance elective. And is, one of the really important and very, very lucrative roles of general managers. Okay. In his role, George and his team evaluate all significant projects with financial implications. George led the team that analyzed and recommended the restructuring 6 years ago that significantly improved the expense ratio. George met with Brian Thomas, that's the CFO. Thomas had reviewed the first quarter preliminary revenues and earnings and told George that it is imperative for the company to find ways to reduce expenses to improve earnings. He set a goal of 10% reduction in operating expenses. Okay, so this is the goal that we are aiming for. This is what the big boss, the CFO, said he wants to see. If ACUS achieves that goal, he estimated that the company would return the expense ratio to a value below 11% and operating earnings would return to 2007 levels. Before engaging the rest of the organization, the CFO would like the functions he manages to take a leadership role in the cost reductions, not just recommending cost reductions actions, but providing examples to show that they are effective. So this is interesting. So the CFO said, we are going to reduce costs. And the first place we're going to reduce costs is in my shop, right? He wants the functions he manages to take a leadership position in the cost reductions. That's pretty impressive. Thomas reviewed the accounting function first and decides he wants it to reduce expenses by 10% overall to be in line with the company's overall target. So it sounds like probably the CFO is starting in his own shop and saying, okay, every department should reduce expenses by 10%. He would also like to see a payback period of 2 years or less for any one-time costs. So we want to reduce expenses in accounting by 10% overall, and he wants to get a payback of 2 years or less for any upfront costs. Okay. So Thomas asked George to evaluate potential cost savings alternatives and provide him with a preliminary analysis within a week. Thomas then informed George that the company had recently begun performing some accounting functions in the service center in India, and gave George the contact information for Sanjay Delphi, the project manager for the company's India facility. George believes that in addition to outsourcing, increasing the use of electronics payments in accounts payable, and relocating some of the accounting functions to the service center of New Jersey are two other viable ways to reduce costs. George made notes on information regarding expenses relevant for the analysis, including the severance policy. See Table 7, Section F. So severance, what severance means is that when you get laid off because of cost cutting, many companies will basically pay you out. They'll pay you some portion of your salary depending on how long you've been working there. So let's go take a look at Table 7 in Section F. Supplemental information. The company's severance policy calls for 2 weeks of salary for each year of service with a minimum payment of 12 weeks. Health benefits and retirement plan contributions continue to be provided during the severance period, and payroll taxes would also apply. Okay. Okay, I'm going to continue through this next section and then start a new video. I don't want these to be too long. Okay. So George also pulled up the organizational chart to list all of the various accounting functions as well as their annual expense budgets, which is Table 1. He assembled information on the staff in each of the accounting functions, including their salaries, benefits, residence, and possible severance based on their years of service, prepared a summary by function. See Table 6. So let's go down and look at Table 1 and Table 6. So here's Table 1. Okay, so we've got 8 people in the tax preparation role. We've got the controller. There's 2 of them in the controller's office. In the accounts payable department, there's 10 of them, etc. So you can see how this is, but it's a total of $6.9 million for salary, and then if we load that up with their benefits, etc., it gives a total of $10 million just in the accounting department for these 93 people. So when you get a salaried job, of course, the actual amount that you get paid, your salary, is only a part of the cost to a company of keeping you. And the costs are going to depend on what kinds of companies. Here you have a benefit load of about 30%, which is pretty typical, I guess, 25 or 30%. And then if we look at Table 6, for severance calculations, they just go into some detail about how many weeks of severance they're eligible for instance. So we'll look at these numbers in a little bit more detail later on. Okay. Back up to the case then. George meets with 2 of his team members, Samantha Charleston and Ryan Falkirk, to explain the project. Given the 1-week turnaround time for the analysis, George suggests that each of them select one option to analyze over the next 4 days and then meet to develop their recommendations. George selects offshoring. Charleston selects electronic check processing, and Falkirk will analyze relocating accounting functions. Okay, I'm going to end the video here, and we will look into the details of the offshoring option.